Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
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 What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm honored to have back on the show for a second time, cult and child abduction whistleblower, devoted father to Adelle, husband to Emily, and son of the Most High, published writer and author, podcaster, and host of his own YouTube channel at I Love You Like One, child abuse advocate, independent researcher, avid reader, biker, gardener and farmer, animal caretaker, Dave Matthews Band concert-goer, coffee lover, and a man on a mission to expose evil and get his daughter emancipated from a satanic cult, Iain Bryson, and SRA Prayer Minister, church youth leader, middle school math tutor, farmer, stray kitty feeder and cat mama, natural builder, homestead dreamer, published book editor, devoted wife to Iain and stepmother to Adelle, former New Ager and current soldier of Christ, cult and child abduction support and whistleblower, and an amazing woman who selflessly stepped into the fight of combating occult and ritual abuse and creating a safe space for survivors, Emily Bryson. A little bit about Iain and Emily's story if you are new here or missed the first episode we did together. In 2010, Iain's first wife and their daughter traveled from their home in the Netherlands to his in-laws' home in Poland for a visit on 2 different occasions. On both occasions, his first wife returned completely distraught, so different in nature that he questioned whether this might be her evil twin. On both occasions, their daughter returned with multiple signs and symptoms of having been abused. Then, in December 2010, after their second return to their home from Poland, his first wife told Iain her family was a cult, that she was under mind control, that she had something like Stockholm Syndrome, that her dad created a red herring so that nobody would believe Iain when he tried to get help, that she was taking their daughter back to the cult in Poland, and that Iain would never see his wife or daughter again. On December 27, 2010, Iain unknowingly said goodbye to them for the last time, giving his daughter a huge hug, thinking they were going to the library down the street. He has not seen his daughter since this moment. After realizing what had happened, Iain avidly tried to get help, but there was no acceptable response to his pleas. The Netherlands wouldn't even take a police report. The United States told him that it was out of their jurisdiction, and Poland was completely out of the question. Iain filed an international parental child abduction report with the United States Secretary of State for his abducted child under the Hague Abduction Convention, and they told him it would take up to 2 years for any legal action to occur. Iain remembers thinking, "This is not a missing car or stolen bicycle. This is my daughter." After 4 months, he decided that he had to demand an investigation by placing himself in the middle of it all. Iain drove to Poland and assaulted his father-in-law on the street, thinking that this would lead to a child abuse investigation of his daughter. He miscalculated. There was no child abuse investigation. What actually ended up happening was that Iain ended up spending 50 months locked up and in prison in Poland. He was released in June 2015, and ever since he has been on an urgent quest to bringing public awareness to his story in hopes that it'll lead to freedom, justice, and a heaven-sent reunion for him and his daughter. On the first episode, we took a deep dive into Iain's testimony and discussed his life's work, including announcing his new memoir, I Love You Like One, A Letter to My Daughter, Abducted by a Cult, written by Iain and edited by our second guest today, Iain's wife, Emily, who I'm so honored to have on the show for part 2. On today's episode, we will be together adding some extra context to the first episode, including discussing specifics on the symptoms of abuse and trauma Iain's ex-wife and daughter exhibited, more about the final 3 weeks that Iain spent with his daughter and ex-wife, which is detailed in part 4 of his memoir, Gotta's cry for help and how no one still has stepped up to investigate or care about all of these years later, what Iain's daughter said, did, and didn't do, the step-by-step on how Iain was fooled, and tools for listeners on how to prevent this from happening to them, the retaliation and attacks experienced since Iain and Emily released his memoir, conferences, connections, and dreams, going to war, how Iain and Emily have navigated the situation as a team, Emily's work working with SRA survivors and assisting Iain with his memoir, her perspective and journey, and believing in Iain and his fight to set his ex-wife and daughter free from their captivity, how Iain's fight became their fight, and so much more. It's really special when we get spouses on the show together. I've had a few episodes so far that included the spouse of the podcast guest, and it truly offers a unique perspective on the importance of teamwork and support when navigating the physical and spiritual realms of SRA and combating related organized occult and ritual abuse crimes. It exemplifies how powerful our support can be, whether it is with a close personal connection to a survivor or whistleblower, or whether it's support from far away, such as online. Coming together for this cause is truly how we help stop these crimes against humanity and children in their tracks. I always say that the spouse is the unsung hero in a survivor and whistleblower's journey, and we see this on multiple levels as Iain and Emily fight for Iain's ex-wife and daughter, especially how Emily came into Iain's life and embraced his journey as her own and has been stuck to his side like glue ever since meeting him. This is going to be a very informative and special episode, so please grab a pen and paper and give Iain and Emily your full attention as we come together today for Iain's ex-wife and daughter Adelle in hopes that we can collectively help expose and free them so Adelle can be reunited and back in the loving arms of her father and Emily once and for all. Before I finish introducing today's guests, I wanted to give just a couple quick reminders and updates. If you'd like to be on the show, share any information privately with me, or send me a written testimony to be written in my upcoming book series or in a Substack article, you can email me at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com or standbysurvivors@protonmail.com. As some of you know, my YouTube channel was recently terminated and I'm being forced to pivot and use other streaming platforms to get this important information out to the public and disclosure community. Your support would mean the world to me on platforms like Rumble and X, where I'm currently streaming. And I also just started another YouTube channel with the handle @Imagination Podcast Official that I will be rebuilding and would love to have you all subscribe there as well while I figure out my new presence on YouTube and how that will look in order to dodge the censorship and backlash for speaking out about these difficult topics. Thank you all for helping to make the imagination the safest space on the internet for survivor, whistleblower, advocate, and educator disclosures. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guests of honor, anti-child abuse and survivor advocates, men and women of God, content creators, exposers and diminishers of evil and darkness, voices for the voiceless, walking miracles, and absolute warriors of light, winning the battle against the darkness, the one, the only, Iain and Emily Bryson. You guys, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to do a part 2 with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Emma.
Great to be here and see you again, Emma.
It's so great to have you. And Emily, like I said before we started, I feel like I already know you. It's really great to finally get to meet you face to face. And, I think there's something really special about the support that survivors have. I think at the end of the day, no matter if you've been through something like Iain or his daughter has, or if you've just, had some traditional sort of dysfunction in your life that was really hard, or maybe you lost somebody. I think in those times, what we remember are the people that helped us get through it once we're healed, and some of those really bad feelings go away. And sometimes even the really good things don't stand out. It's who got us through it, who we were able to lean on, and who gave us hope whenever we were down, who stood by us. I really think that that's such a big part of these stories. And, your role in this is not to be underestimated. And so I'm really excited to have your perspective here today as we do some of these deep dives and, to hear what your journey's been like here with Iain and some of the things that you as an individual have experienced. But before we kind of get into some of what we're going to talk today, I wanted to just give you a little chance to introduce yourself a little bit and to share a little bit about your work and who you are. That way people can get to know you and the amazing warrior that you are on the battlefield.
Oh, thank you, Emma. It's such an honor to be here. And I just want to say that what you just described, you are that person for so many people. just your consistency, you showing up and just being so loving and encouraging, giving people a place to share stories that a lot of people don't want to hear, don't want to believe, is absolutely life-changing. And I think a lot of people cling to that. So it's so encouraging, and I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you, Emma. We love you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, a little about me. Like the intro said, I did not grow up as a Christian. I didn't grow up knowing who Jesus was or knowing what was in the Bible at all, really. And before I met Iain, really the same year, I went on this trip and I started really seeking answers for spiritual things. And I started, doing things like ayahuasca and mushrooms. And I learned that the spiritual realm is very real and it's very serious. But taking those things kind of launched me in a direction that was kind of aimless. And I met a lot of interesting people, but a lot of new age stuff I got involved with, and I didn't know the reality of what that really was. So it wasn't until I met Iain that I got to see who Jesus is. And I know with all my heart that God put us together and he scooped me up out of the mess that I was heading toward and in. God scooped me up out of that situation using Iain and has stepped me into my calling, which is to be his wife and to help help survivors on this journey. And I don't know all the ways that that is going to look, of course, but it has been the most amazing thing of my life to work with survivors and pray with them. There's something so special about them. And they're just the most amazing people in the world. I learned so much from them and their strength and who Jesus is. I learned just listening to testimonies has shown me who Jesus is and that he is actively working and fighting for us every day, every second of every day. He's right here with us right now. And his heart is for every captive to be set free and to be healed. So it's an honor to be a part of that, you know? So that's where my heart is. And just seeing who Iain is in his story is so mind-blowing because he's the most loving and amazing person I have ever met. And it's mind-blowing to see just the red herring at work. You know, that's what's on the cover of the book, the red herring. It's the major distraction away from the truth and just how effective that is in distracting people, even people that are, supposed to know him the best, his own family. And so, yeah, there's just so much. I feel so blessed to be on this journey with him. And yeah, that's.
Can I ask you, Emily, when did you come across satanic ritual abuse and occult abuse and just these different things that normally get labeled a conspiracy theory? And why and how did you end up believing Iain when, like you said, so many people in his life don't? How did that transpire for you in your life? And when did you start believing and learning that this is actually a reality happening in our world?
Yeah. So I first learned about it when I met Iain. The second conversation we ever had, it was the first real conversation we had because the first time we met, it was like a few minutes. And the next time we met, he just told me his entire life story. I was like, wow, this guy has nothing to hide. And I loved that. But he was like, have you ever heard of ritual abuse? And I remember like the way that felt in my brain. I was like, what? I've never heard those words put together. I have no idea what that is. And so he told me about it. And at that point, that same conversation, at that point in my life, with the new age stuff I was in, I was like, I don't believe the devil's real, you know, it's just wrong perception, stuff like that. And with time, and Iain so lovingly and so gently just showing things to me, reading scripture together, and hearing other testimonies, reading books. The first book I read about SRA was Kathy O'Brien's book. I think she has several, but I think it was Transformation of America. And that rattled my world because that's a pretty detailed book. And so there was a big part of me that didn't want to believe it, but I just kept diving into it, trying to learn more. And I went through a phase of paranoia for sure. Just like, oh my gosh, you know, the government, I can't trust anything or anyone. And like, what's even real anymore? So it was it was a big adjustment to keep that, to not have that like uh separation, as in like my mind wanted to kind of separate that and compartmentalize and like put that in the back, like, oh no, that's not what reality is. But being with Iain every day, and this is, you know, his life and what he is so steadfast on, I couldn't just tuck it away. And I didn't want to. Like, I want to know the truth. So I think I believed it because I wanted to know the truth. I kept reading stories, testimonies, learning about just how evil the world really is. And I think just seeing who Iain is as well has helped me to believe his story, if that makes sense.
Totally does.
I feel like God just kind of prepared me for this in ways I didn't even know was happening. So,
And then it's like by the time you heard it, you were ready to receive that information, and it wasn't
yeah.
something that you could just shake off like a lot of people do because you were ready for it. I think that's like, I think people are so used to not researching now because you can literally just like, you can go scroll through stuff and people's attention span is so low. And I think people, when they first hear about this, it's maybe on a TikTok video or it's on a little 60-second short, and they get like this really condensed, like almost sensationalized version. And then they think it's a conspiracy because unless you actually are around somebody or you listen to testimony and you hear that truth in somebody's journey that has gone through something, it changes you and there's not any denying it. And I totally get what you mean by like your initial reaction is wanting to tuck it away because it literally like your whole everything you ever believe just falls apart, and your world that that you're comfortable in, that you've lived your whole life is just, it's shattered. And that's really hard to like to like have to rebuild and like re-engineer your life as an adult, and then to face something that's so hard and to feel that personal responsibility of like, well, shit, now that I know, like I have to do something about it. I can't just like go on with my merry life and like, live normally. There's things that I have to do to step in and fight, and we're really lucky that you made that decision and that you didn't just write him off. I'm sure that was a relief for Iain. I know that a lot of people in your life, Iain, didn't treat you that way, that even people you were really close to turned their back on you, and didn't believe you. And, I'm sure that was just such a sigh of relief and a breath of fresh air that you had somebody, a stranger, come in and embrace your story and say, hey, wait, this is really unfamiliar, but like, tell me more. Like, I don't want to believe this, but I'm not going to write it off until I know all the information, until I research, I'm going to actually dive into this and, face whatever it is that I need to face if it's the truth, So it's really beautiful to have you here, Emily, and to get to hear these different perspectives from you and to, talk more about your journey together. And Iain, I'm so excited that you're here and that we get to dive a little bit deeper into some of these, hard parts of your story, but parts I think are really valuable for people. But before we do that, I know that it's been a little bit since you've been on, and I wanted you to add any context to what you've been up to working on and catch us up and, again, share with us where we can get your book and share anything new that you're working on right now.
So, yeah, thank you. Since we spoke last, which I think was September, it's been happening. We are we're both in new jobs, and we're getting ready to look for buying a house, and just believing that God has a place for us, where we can that will provide us with everything that we need to do the work that's on our heart to do. So we would love to have a place where we can have like a working homestead farm, kind of like as a safe place for survivors, as a healing place with animals and a therapy garden, and also just do canning and stuff like that ourselves too. Emily really loves homesteading, and she keeps asking if we can just buy a piece of property and then live in like a trailer or in a
Tiny
tent
house.
maybe. And I'm like, well, I think we could find one with a house on it, and because I'm kind of done with being nomadic, and I want like some place where we can get situated, have a real office and stuff like that. And so we've been just we've done a few podcasts, or I've done a few podcasts since then. We've been working on our YouTube channel, and Emily has been editing those videos and making shorts and stuff like that, and learning how to do that. Um, the YouTube channel jumped from 100 subscribers to 350 subscribers after we spoke, so that was amazing, because it feels like you hit a plateau, and it's hard to get out there and get more people um, just listening and caring, and that it's really exploded since then. A lot of people have been reaching out with similar stories. They want to talk and collaborate and things like that. Um, I'm working on a second book. Uh, so I'm hoping to do it this year. It's been something that's been on my heart to do for a long time, and just with us being, we moved in August again, and we're trying to move again shortly to our own home, hopefully. That's the plan. And but the book is, I believe I believe I'm supposed to write a book about where Christians are in terms of how they view the world, and their reality, and what life is, and what being a Christian means. And I believe that part of that, a lot of it, is understanding what the enemy is up to, um, and that understanding what evil's doing helps us to frame our realities, to be to be servants of Christ. Christ loves children and survivors, and at this point, the Christian church is just oblivious to what evil is doing, and because of that, we're inviting it in the form of Freemasonry, in the form of just the occult things, and not knowing where the line is. And so we're susceptible to being fooled and to having these people in our midst, and SRA is happening right under our noses, and there's just no recognition or um, desire to understand that this is happening. People want to stay in their bubbles and stay safe, and just think about their retirement and what movie they're going to see, or where they're going to go on vacation, while people are really suffering. And even at our church, with my story and my book coming out, um, it's still like people just cannot go to these places, and it's a problem. it's a big problem because there's people that are suffering because we as Christians can't go to these places, and we are just meat for the devil to attack because we don't know what the devil's capable of, and that's what I want to write the book about, and I've got I'm planning on doing it this year, so that's a big project that we're working on in addition to everything else. Um, Emily, as she said, and you said, has been tutoring middle school kids in math, so that's been fun for her. I think just being in the kids' lives, getting to like build relationships with these kids. And I just started as a group facilitator at a residential program for military active and veterans who need help with substance abuse or mental health issues. And a lot of it is PTSD, so it's right up my alley. And I feel blessed not only because it's going to allow us to buy a house, but also because I get to be in these guys' lives and just to spend time with them for a month and impact them hopefully in positive ways with my story and with where I draw my hope from. Because I have been bowled over and chewed up and spit out, but I still have not been defeated, and I know that my God gives victory. Like he's going to plan. He has a plan that's going to work this terrible situation with my daughter out for good. That's his promise, and so I'm excited about just being able to impact other people in the job I work for money, in addition to what I do at home. I'm trying to work with survivors myself, not as much as Emily is with kind of more the prayer ministry, but just being a support and whatever people need from me, and I'm waiting for direction as to what to do next. I don't necessarily know exactly everything that's coming next. I just believe we are being pulled deeper into the ministry, and God's going to continue to provide for us. So it's exciting and challenging.
That's for sure.
That's amazing. I think people get overwhelmed when they learn about this, and instead of thinking about what can I do to help, even though that might be in their mind, they feel so overwhelmed with like, I'm just one person, I work, I have all this stuff to do, like what difference am I going to make? I'm not going to do anything because I'm too overwhelmed. Like it's such a big problem. But you think about just the difference that, I hear all these stories, and I think about Emily, your role as a teacher, and I hear all these kids that say no teacher ever cared about me or like showed me love whenever I was in school. Like I never got that. The teachers, like nobody acknowledged me or made me feel special. And I think like what a beautiful role. Like if you enjoy that, like you might not know what kids could be suffering from something like this, but you may encounter them and they might cite you one day on a podcast and say, I had this teacher named, you know, Miss Bryson or whatever your name is in school, and she made the difference in my life, and same thing with people with PTSD that you're working with, Iain. Like I hear that all the time too. Like nobody helped me, nobody asked me what was wrong, nobody cared about me. And it's like, oh my gosh, like we just doing something to make a difference in one person's life that they can say one day, like, this person helped me or this person made me feel good. Like I love that you guys are looking for all different ways to do that because we can make a difference. It doesn't matter if we're just one person. We can make a huge difference if we care about people and insert ourselves in areas that have suffering and pain where a lot of people don't care, and take the knowledge that we learn and be able to offer empathy and compassion to things that maybe we can't even understand. We just understand that there's probably suffering happening or ways that we can add joy to somebody's life, or make something fun or make somebody feel good. And I think that's really, really awesome that you guys are encompassing that so much, and really exciting about your homestead too, eventually being maybe like a retreat center for some of these people to come and, experience some of those feelings that maybe they never had before, that peace and quiet and, that love and just being able to breathe and, not worry about 1,000 million things going on like they usually do. So really excited to hear more developments with that, as you guys continue growing together and individually on these missions. And I thank you both for what you're doing. I know it does get heavy, it does get hard, but I see the love between you two, and how you guys are filling each other's cup and taking whatever's left over, and giving it to other people, and just continuing that cycle, rinse, lather, repeat. So I'm excited to hear more about that. And one of the things that I wanted to ask Iain, you had mentioned, both of you, like this book was a labor of love of both of you. I know you wrote it, Iain, but Emily did all the editing. I'm sure she contributed a lot, and since coming forward with all of this, because you guys really made that decision together to be, public about this, and Emily, you've joined him. I wanted to ask you guys about what have you guys experienced as far as like attacks, retaliation, how have you managed that as a team?
Yeah, well, there's been quite a few things. One of the first things that happened was we were evicted because of the book from where we were living, and that was a messy situation. Um, but Iain lost his job because of it. Um, what else? I mean, those are two big ones.
It went around in
Oh,
a
yeah.
character attacks went around in our church. It's the same one that went to where I was working.
Yeah, there was a letter that his first wife, Agatha, wrote. We don't think that she wrote it by herself, but it was just horrible things. We made a video about it, reading it and kind of explaining it. But this letter was emailed to a lot of people. So yeah, Iain's place of work, every family member and friend that they could get the email address of, our pastors at our church. So yeah, that was pretty intense. But people that know Iain are just like, wow, that's warfare right there. Like these people don't want to be exposed. Um,
Can you share a little bit about what was in that letter, like what you guys talked about on your channel, just for people who might not have seen it? And I encourage you guys, please go subscribe to Iain and Emily on YouTube at I Love You Like One. I'll have it linked below, but they are on there sharing videos and they're doing it as a couple too on some of these videos. So I really want you guys to go support them. But for people who didn't listen, could you share a little bit about that?
yeah, thank you, Emma. Yeah, so his first wife just reiterated that how violent Iain was. This is the red herring. These are the lies that she had to escape from him for their lives, that she described more details of abuse that she endured, but that she says was at the hands of Iain. She cited and attached different court documents, and I translated them to English. They were in Polish, and it's just crazy to see the reality of it. How it's like, one of the things was how the Polish police didn't feel a need to investigate sexual abuse in Adelle. They were like, there's not sufficient evidence to investigate this any further. And it's like, you've done absolutely nothing. You just talked to the family. Like, just everything that Iain described in the book. She just everything about the red herring. It was just all in this email. It was awful. At first, it made me feel like angry and afraid, but Iain is just very awesome because he's like, I'm glad she sent it because it's just they're kind of sinking their own ship.
Yeah, there's one of my friends. Like when I tell them that we're being attacked, it's like, well, when you're being attacked, that means you're over the target.
Yeah.
So this email, like, yeah, it hit it like Emily, didn't know how to respond because it said things like that I was locking my daughter in the bedroom and making her pee on the floor and stuff like that, that like none of that had none of the allegations had ever been voiced before. It was just like a vague, we had to escape and Ian's the bad guy. And then for that to come out right after my book is out and it's as severe as Ian locked her in the bedroom and made her pee on the floor, it's so ridiculous, especially since I've been begging and pleading for my daughter to be evaluated since day one. You know, like I was never concerned about myself. I was never concerned about anything that would happen to me as a result of an investigation. It was only about my daughter and still is. But just like for them now to say that I was basically doing what I was accusing them of doing is ludicrous. And so I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful that they go into such detail that it makes it absurd. If not, there's many reasons it's absurd, but I think the primary one is that I have been trying to get help every day, and just and willing to go to prison, willing to put myself on the line, willing to be um, attacked in whatever way they want to attack me, because it's not about me, it's about my daughter, and it always has been. And so I think that's becoming more clear with things like that.
Well, and
Yeah.
it corroborates so much of what you guys have probably heard from other survivors, and even on my podcast. Like,
Yeah.
I obviously can't be at everybody's mailbox, so I'm sure that something like that is common. I've actually heard of stuff like that, but just from my own perspective, I'll have certain videos that I post, and family members will just come on. I know it's the family, and just pepper the comment section with all this trash about this person's schizophrenic. They're the abuser. They're the ones that did this. They did that, and it's like, like that's playbook. And so when you learn that, like, it's kind of that, if you know, when that happens, it's like, all right, like you automatically validate yourself, because it's like they're doing exactly the playbook of what an abuser does. They're
Yep.
trying to counteract by gaslighting you. And I know even like Nathan Reynolds has talked about that, where like he would have family, maybe not, it's not the same exact situation, but very close to what happened to me, where his family would go on all of his YouTube videos and just post the most nasty things about him, pretending to be like people from his past life, not family, but like, oh, Nathan was my friend and he was this and he's lying. And he'd be like, Emma, there was like hundreds and hundreds of comments that I had to like go and like figure out who to block and like delete these people. And, it's like the lengths that they go. Like, if you were lying and like you're just like this loony, like people don't pay attention to that. They're like, who cares? Like, that person's crazy. Like, for them to put that much effort into it, like,
Yep.
that you're over the target, like you said, and that's playbook. They're panicking, and that's the only thing that they can think to do to try to weasel themselves out of the hole that they dug. More and more lies. The whole thing's built on lies, and that's their only defense, is more. And it's like, how long can you keep doing that for? Like, eventually you're not going to make sense, and it ends up happening to where it's like, okay, now you're making yourself look bad here. Like, why didn't you come talk about this in 2010? Like, where were you whenever that was happening? Like, why did these allegations never come out? Like, you guys only do it when I'm finally getting some public exposure on you. Like, when I'm using my voice, now you all of a sudden come and start gaslighting. So I think that's really validating. I'm really sorry that happened, because I'm sure that was really stressful for both of you, trying to figure out where to live so suddenly, trying to figure out, another financial situation with work. But hopefully, I know for me and everybody listening, like, that's such a validation, and it's almost like a badge of honor in a weird way, because
Mhm.
it shows that, like, what you're saying is true, because they're doing exactly what 100% of these abusers do after somebody in their family discloses, and tells on them. So
Yep.
it's like they're kids, all that, they can't like take responsibility. They're just like, no, you did it. Like, no,
Right.
it's so petty how this all happens. But the sad thing is, because society's not educated, people are really susceptible to believing the other side of the story instead of, knowing what we know. And so that's why it's important that we do these videos and educate people, because the more people hear that, like, eventually it becomes, oh, well, that's just a playbook. Like, I know not to take that seriously. But I'm really
Mhm.
sorry that happened. That had to have been, pretty devastating for both of you. And it's hard. Like we risk our reputations knowing that people are they're going to pull whatever they can out of a hat to try to make us look bad. I've had it done to me a million times, and I'm like, I'm just like literally a podcast host. Like, go pick on somebody else, you guys, but you realize like the war that we're in and that like they don't care who you are. They don't want you talking about this stuff and ruining what generations have hidden, generations and decades of secrets. When we start telling on them, it breaks down that. And that's devastating for these people. But we got to keep doing it. And I'm really proud of you guys for doing it despite everything. A lot of people would have shut up, Iain, after getting locked up. I love that you kept going and, that you now have Emily here with you for that. And you did mention, and I mentioned in the intro, and I wanted to just give you a moment to talk about this too. I know the anniversary for the subduction just happened in December, and wanted to see if you wanted to add anything to that and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so December 27th is the anniversary, and 24 was the 14-year anniversary. So every year that has gone by has been excruciating because I've had to watch my daughter's entire childhood go away and know that I'm missing it. And also where she's at is the primary problem, because I would give my life just to get her out of where she's at. But so much has been lost, and so much that as a dad is important to me has just been destroyed and trampled on. And so yeah, this time of year around Christmas, because that was December 2010, was the last Christmas I ever spent with my daughter, and the last Christmas where I was in in the dream world of not understanding that SRA is real, thinking that my family was safe, that I could protect them, that I had things under control, and it just December 27, 2010, that was blown out of the water, and every year since then has just been a reminder of that, and a reminder of the time going by. And um, my daughter's going to be 18 years old the end of this month, and so that's like it's horrible. It's just the biggest reminder. Now she's going to be an adult, and so her entire childhood was spent in living in this horrible family, and for that entire time, despite all of my screaming and yelling and pleading, nobody has stepped up to do anything. Um, and they'll say, well, maybe she'll come find you. Girls always go find their dads when they're old enough to, or maybe she can get out because she'll be of age and uh, legally an adult. And it's just, those things just prove more that people aren't listening and don't get what it is I've been talking about. Um, her her mother, my first wife, was coerced to abduct our daughter, and that's clear in the book. And she's under mind control. Um, she told me she has Stockholm syndrome. I saw it. I believed she was possessed. And she told me what was going to happen, and then it happened, and I watched it happen. And so for people to think that now my daughter's going to be 18 and be able to be like, oh, I want to go see my dad, or I'm going to leave this family, is just not how it works. Um, so it just brings me back to where my hope comes from, and that time doesn't matter for God. I do believe that things are being changed. I've seen it happening. I've seen in the past 14 years since my daughter was taken, just how this issue has blown up, and how there's so many people speaking out. And that wasn't there when this first happened. I couldn't even really find it when I was Google searching what could be happening. It just wasn't in the public discourse, and now it's out there. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but I still believe, and that my daughter's going to be set free. And I don't know what it looks like or when exactly, but I think that's what we're going towards. And if I didn't believe it, I would be back in prison because I'm still not afraid for my own life at all. It's still everything I do is for my daughter in one way or another, I believe it should be as a dad. And it blows my mind when people think otherwise or think, oh, just wait for her to come to you or just make another one. Those are things that people say. And it's just you don't understand. This is my little girl. And I would stop the world for her because that's my little girl. Yeah, we're we have things on the horizon with prayer ministry and ultimately it's going to be God that makes the move on this one. It's going to be something that I can't imagine and I can't put together myself because the world is not set up to help us. The world is not set up to deal with these situations. And I just had to watch my child's whole childhood just vanish because of that. But I don't believe it's continue like that. I think that's why we're here. That's why we're going through this. That's why all these people are speaking out is because it's time. It's time for this to come out, be exposed, and darkness cannot survive in the light.
100%. And your daughter is going to be so lucky when she does come out to have two parents that understand what she went through, are working on educating themselves and others on healing, that you guys have been doing deep healing on yourselves. I mean, it's so sad. It's so devastating how this breaks up families, whether it's in a situation like yours or just a family that's together, a satanic family, the one, the black sheep ends up figuring out what's going on and leaves, and then all of a sudden is completely outcasted by the family and has nobody, friends. And so I think when your daughter does get out, knowing that she has you guys, she's so lucky because so many survivors would have, literally given their lives, and some of them have, because they didn't have that, and they would, give their lives in a heartbeat just to have somebody waiting for them on the other side, somebody advocating for them while they're going through this. And I just thank God for parents like you and Samantha Baldwin, and all these different parents that have been on my podcast and that I'm sure you guys have met behind the scenes, and the silent ones out there that haven't gotten to a space where they can tell somebody or might not even know what they're going through. It's really devastating how this impacts every single person involved, and at the same time it's really beautiful that your daughter's going to have a support system when she comes out, and hopefully it dismantles the whole rest of the family, and your ex-wife can also be emancipated and get healing herself, and who knows who else in the family. I pray that everybody does, as much as we want to be angry at all these people and hate them. I know that there is eventually a choice that people reach where they can stay or leave. And I know that, it takes so much to be able to leave. And even if you do, it's not a guarantee that you'll either be alive after or that you'll be able to stay free, because they set up honeypots and traps for you everywhere to bring you back in. And I do realize that, but at the same time, it's like I would love for everybody to be a Kathy O'Brien on the other side of this, to come clean, no matter if they're 80 years old or if, they're 18, to just whenever all this is exposed, for people to, and even before that, for more and more people to just come out and say, okay, I've done a lot of wrong in my life, but this is why, and I'm ready to come clean about it. I'm ready to heal, and I'm ready to share about my experience to help other people and to help heal other people and to help expose this. But I know that that's not going to be the case with everybody. There are some people that are willingly and consciously choosing to do this, and those are the people that we have to expose and let people know that these people are out there, but it's a shame all the people that wish so bad that they can come out, but they know that they don't have support. They know that they're not going to be believed. They know that there's traps set up. And so they just stay, so it goes to show how important this work is, because the support, I think when survivors believe that they'll have support on the other side of coming out, when they see enough people speaking up for them and advocating for them, that's going to give them more and more people the courage to actually leave, instead of, debating with themselves because, the whole family's going to hate them or whatever. If they feel like they have a family on the other side of this, I think that that's so encouraging. And I hope your daughter is being exposed to your guys' work. And, I hope she's looking for you guys now and knows that you guys are fighting for her. But if she doesn't now, she's going to, and the work that you're doing, it's not going to be in vain. These years that you didn't get to experience her growth, excuse me, she's going to have all of the all these years of getting to know you, through the work that you've done and seeing how she's been advocated for. And I can't wait for that day, and I can't wait to have her on a podcast one day. I too believe that that'll happen and that it's going to happen sooner than we think. One of the things I wanted to bring up, though, you had mentioned that, during this whole process, you were fooled, and had no idea because we're not taught this stuff. It happens to so many parents that, aren't born into a cult and like aren't educated on this. Like we're not educated on all that these things exist growing up. And so like who would try to believe something like that and be able to comprehend when you're in a situation what exactly is going on? It's always in hindsight after things have hit the fan, then it's like, oh crap, like look what I'm right in the middle of. And so I wanted to talk about that process with you, and how you sort of like reverse engineered that in ways looking back that you can say, oh, this is like areas where I was taken advantage of or fooled, or things that like went totally over my head because I didn't know. Because I think that's helpful tools for people to navigate their own situations, if either they're wondering or for future situations when they're meeting new people, to be able to have discernment for things that are really hard to understand when you're in the moment.
Yeah, I think the first thing that's important is to realize what kind of world we're dealing with and what kind of level of evil is out there. Because if we don't know that, if our awareness is just in the general mainstream awareness, then we are just sitting ducks. And the people who are doing this these doing wickedness, they believe in what they're doing. They know the power in the spiritual realm, and they fully believe it, and they're acting it out. The most of the world, most of America doesn't really believe in the spiritual realm, and especially Christians, I think. It's just like it's kind of like just a fairy tale. It's like they talk about it, but they don't know what it means. And so that's where I was at. Like I had a touch of that when I was a child being brought to church. They would talk about things in the spiritual world, in the spiritual realm, but no understanding of it. So when I entered adulthood and graduated college and met my first wife, like I immediately knew something was going on. Um, but I was just blind and willfully blind to some degree, and because of that, just able to be just run over and moved like a puppet wherever they needed me to be. And a lot of that was just like a distraction, from things that are happening, like from the symptoms my first wife had. She would just, whenever I got too close, she would bring me somewhere else, and or start a fight, or we weren't allowed to talk about it. She knew how to keep me off the trail, even when my daughter started coming back with bruises and vaginal pain, and talking about her grandfather's private parts. I could not believe it, because I didn't think that this sort of thing could get into my world. I thought it was just on TV, and somewhere else. It wouldn't. I was not going to be touched by this because it's rare, if it even exists, and I wasn't even taught about this stuff. Like I I knew about child abuse because I worked for Department of Children and Families for a little while, but even in those government positions where they're supposedly protecting children, they don't know about this, and often they're involved. Um, like there was between my need to disbelieve what was right in front of my eyes, like the bruises and other things in my daughter, even though it was right there. I still had I had a psychological need to block it out, because what that would mean if that was happening in my house was too big for me to wrap my head around. It would have sent me flying if I was able to understand what my first wife was saying to me and what I was seeing. So I had a natural tendency to need to disbelieve or to not see what I was seeing. And then my first wife, she did the rest. She was able to just direct me whenever I got close and keep an eye on me from the outside. But she knew that I didn't know what I was looking at. She knew that I had no understanding of reality, of the war between good and evil, and of what these occult families are doing. And then it would be too late by the time I saw it. So she did prepare me in a lot of ways. She did tell me a lot of things, but she was also under mind control and forced to take our daughter back to the perpetrators. Um, I think that the main thing is, like, we cannot just turn our backs to these things. If people think it's a small, isolated situation where people are abused in the situation, then that still should be the top of our priority list. But I know it's not small at this point. It's happening a lot. It's happening all around us, because that's when people decide to go down to wickedness. SRA is the epitome of it, and that's where you go if you want the all the power that the devil has to give people, and that power is real. SRA is where you get it, and so that's what's happening. And of course, it's not out in the mainstream. People don't want to talk about it, or it's being intentionally hidden and with disinformation and just convincing people that that's crazy. And so people just live in this place where it's happening all around them, but they are blind to it because it hasn't happened to their daughter yet, or maybe it has, but they just refuse to see it like I did, until it was too late for me. And then now, since then, I've had to see it. I've had to continue to open my eyes, and the Lord has continued to open my eyes. So it's not just my daughter that I'm fighting for, but anybody in this situation, because it's not okay that it's happening to anybody. So that's where I'm at right now with it. And it just blows my mind that, you know, people read my book, people hear my story, and they still think it's far away from them. It's still like a story. Oh, that happened to you. I'm sorry, and it's like, I was just a normal guy. I just married into an occult family, and this happened. And you think you can proceed through life and just block it out, and that your children, your grandchildren are going to steer clear from it. It's like playing Russian roulette.
That's such a good point. I had a podcast guest named Asia Rain on. You've probably heard of her. And she mentioned, when we as society is confronted with this, we compartmentalize it just like how, a trauma victim would their trauma. And we say, okay, I'll admit that this exists. Like, sure, child trafficking exists, but it exists over there. It exists in this third world country. It exists in the ghettos. It is nowhere in my bubble. Like, I don't have to worry about it. So I'm only going to care so much. I know it exists. I'm not ignorant, but I don't have to care about it because it doesn't impact me. And it's never going to, or anybody that, is around me. And that's exactly where we're wrong, because it is the people around us. It's like you said, our churches are infested. It's the people that we're trusting in church and, like, getting ministered to for our healing. It's, the child's teacher at their school. It is, the soccer coach and the Boy Scout leader, and it's the lawyer that and the judge that we go to court and expect them to give us a fair trial when we're in family court wanting the best for our kids. Like, these people are everywhere around children and around us, and they blend right in because, as Nathan Reynolds says, this is a radical, intelligent evil. These aren't the stupid people that we see on TV. And I totally relate to what you said about that, Iain, because how I've always been introduced to this stuff, through movies and TV. It's like that movie Taken, where you see this like random crazy guy who like picks a random person that he doesn't know and like kidnaps them. And so you think that like, oh, these are just like some stupid idiots, these abusive like psycho weirdos that are like have they're just like sitting in their room like waiting to burst, and they just go kidnap a random kid. And it's like, no, like this is a very sophisticated operation. This is a criminal enterprise, just like any type of mafia. And that recollect like realizing that it does like it's so hard to take that in and to bring that in and to say, oh my gosh, and I can't even imagine like realizing that you're in the thick of it, because it was hard enough for me to acknowledge that like it's probably my neighborhood. Like I probably went to school with kids that went through this, and I probably like run into people at the grocery store, or like maybe even still have friends that have gone through this and maybe they don't know. Like it's hard to realize you're so close to it. And so I can't even imagine, you probably almost like dissociated to a point of like not even wanting to like face that, because it is like it's too much. It's way too much. And that's why like most people don't even want to, they can't even admit and like face that it exists somewhere in the world, much less that like it could be around them in close proximity. And Emily, I wanted to ask you too, we talk about trauma and like the side effects of like somebody actually going through abuse, but secondary trauma is another thing. Like walking in whenever you have, what you think the world is, because you didn't grow up in, one of these families, you didn't go through a situation like what Iain did in the same way. I know you're going through it with him now, but before that, like you walked in, had like, a life, and you thought the world was a certain way. And I wanted to ask you, like, how has this all impacted you? Like what's been sort of the secondary trauma that you've experienced going through this, and like how has this impacted your life?
Yeah, there's a few different parts to that. I think there's almost like a grieving that goes along with having to let go of what I thought the world was, because they say ignorance is bliss, but at the same time, I think there's in knowing the truth, because things make more sense from this perspective, that the whole world lies in wickedness, and knowing that has made me run to Christ for everything. So it's like I was exposed to, well, just I learned about the worst evil that exists, but at the same time, I learned about the solution. I learned about the best thing that exists. So that's helped me tremendously. It's very sobering to um, wake up to that kind of evil, and to see it in Iain's life as well. I mean, he definitely has some PTSD, and it's been good to like label it that way, because in the past, when we've like different things have come up with us, and I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, it doesn't even make sense, like why you're feeling this way. And I've kind of, gotten really frustrated at him. But now that it's been good to just put a label of like, he's been through hell and he has PTSD, and now I can approach him in a better way, in a healthier, more supportive, loving way, where I'm not like taking it as a personal attack. He just has to go through what he's going through, and I can support him through that. So it's been terrible and it's been amazing at the same time.
And Iain, what would you say are some ways that have really helped you having her support? What has Emily done that has been really, really helpful for you going through this?
Well, I mean, when right before I met Emily, I had just like, I had come to such a solid conclusion that I would never remarry. That, like when I met her, I had my ring on from um, and I just knew, and I was telling my friends when they said, "Oh, you need to marry, you should have a wife." I would say, I have a wife, and I know, like, as much as I know that I'm a man, I know that I will never remarry. And then Emily walked into my life, and like the chapter in my book when she walked into my life. It's called Unless She Was Sent by God. And like that's really what it was. Like I wasn't willing to let go of Agata and Adele. You know, they were still going to be like the fight that I was in and the reason for doing what I do. Um, and just who Emily is. And she was really the first person who heard what I've been through and like responded the way that she did. I have a couple friends who have been there through the entire ordeal, but they're doing their own thing with their families and their jobs, and so they're supportive. And but Emily um, just turned her whole life, just pivoted, and and not only did she start to devour the Bible and start to try to understand what I meant by God is my hope, and that's the direction I'm going. She did that on her own. I knew I didn't have to force her. I knew I didn't have to um, preach to her because I believed that God sent this woman into my life, and every day or every week that went by, just became more apparent because there were signs in her that just solidified that we were meant to do this together. And she put everything aside, everything she thought about life, everything, her dreams, her whole belief system about everything. She just turned it over and took Adele's situation and Agata's situation and was able to feel it and connect with them in such a way where there's nothing else that she can put first above that. And that's amazing because I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands of people. And of course, I don't expect everyone just to put down everything they're doing and join me, but she's like she did. Of course, God has individual jobs for us all, but I mean, she's given me um, just confidence in just seeing what God can do, how God can change my mind. Um, just continued the journey of what love is and what marriage is and how we're supposed to proceed as man and wife. I remember one of the first nights we hung out, I had like a feeling and an understanding that we're like Adam and Eve in the garden, and we have a choice to obey God or to not obey God, and we both knew that we had to obey God, and that God was going to bring us down His path for His destiny, for His glory, and that that's what we both wanted to do, um, and it's just going from there. I mean, she's my softer side. She's the side that like some people can relate to her better than me because I'm very serious quite often, and it's hard for me to kind of step away from my talking points because it's my daughter. Emily gets that, and she can relate to people that I can't relate to, um, and I think she's just her perspective is very powerful because she saw what I see and has not turned away, but turned closer towards it and closer towards the answer. And I feel blessed. I am blessed and like there's things that I can't do on my own, and Emily is just like the perfect match for all of the things where I can't do it, or it's not what is my strong suit. She picks up that ball and just runs with it and is amazing. And I'm excited. I'm excited for Adele to meet her, and I'm excited for whatever God has in store for us. And Emily basically fills that void where like I didn't feel like I had anybody, except for friends that I've known for a long time, but not that intimate, close partner that's just like, we're in this together. I'm gonna stand by you. We're gonna do this. That didn't happen with anybody, and most, well, all people in my family turned their backs on me. And um, my mother's the one that evicted us. My sister's the one that joined a Bible study at our church, even though she's not a Christian, and spread this disinformation around about me. And it's been challenging and hard. And Emily makes it make sense. We have our family, and we know that we're heading towards serving however we are supposed to. And it just, through that, we have peace and joy the majority of the time.
And I love too that Adele's going to have not just one parent, but she's going to have an example of love and like what a loving relationship actually is. As soon as she comes out, she's going to have that example and a loving mother to come home to, after, you know, being with a mom that's been just so damaged and like coerced and manipulated that she can't even be like a protection to her. And so I wish every survivor had an Emily, and you are very lucky that you have her, and I hope every survivor ends up finding a spouse like that. And I think you guys give such a good hope that that's possible. I hate when survivors or whistleblowers just feel like so much shame or like that they're too damaged for somebody. And it's like, no, are you kidding? Like the right person will come in and like embrace all of that about you and like love you more for it, And I wanted to ask you, Emily, that is a big role coming in. You weren't a mother, you weren't a wife. I'm sure that, in your mind, becoming those things would have maybe looked different just because you didn't know that this stuff existed. I'm sure your idea of like becoming a mom wasn't, necessarily walking into, a family like this and like, learning about the different evils in the world, but instead of being afraid of that, like you embrace that. And so many people run away whenever they're confronted with this information, like we talked about. They can't look, so many survivors get in relationships and like their spouse just can't handle that. And I wanted to ask you, you work with survivors, you are with a survivor and whistleblower, you've become educated, you know, what advice do you have for people like you who want to be supportive but maybe don't know how? What's important, and how do we support survivors and whistleblowers better? And what have you learned as far as your own situation on how to be effective with that?
Great question. I feel like so much of what I've learned and how I've grown is because of who Iain is and his strength and how he has encouraged me. He has stretched me and challenged me in good ways, where like to do things that I never thought I could do. So um community is huge. Like joining groups, we are a part of a couple Zoom groups where there's survivors or advocates, and we do like Bible studies, different things together. Building that community and having that support is so huge and has helped me tremendously. I think just knowing the truth about who we are in Christ, and how he grows us in boldness and authority in him has been the most important part. Because I haven't had like super severe trauma in my life, but there's still a lot of stuff I've had to heal from and am healing from. And so it's been a very healing process for me, just growing closer to the Lord. I think that's just really what it's all about, is growing closer to him. He shows you your gifts and your calling, and like shows you that even though there's so much evil in this life, there is beauty as well, because of him. So yeah, I think being patient, because I've gone through different phases of being like, there's nothing I can do. This is just way too big. Kind of like what you mentioned before, Emma. But then I've also gone through phases of like, I want to tackle this. Like, what can I do? We got to do something big. And, neither of those have been super productive. It's what's been the best thing is to pray fervently, ask God for direction, be open to the opportunities that God gives. And there are opportunities every day. And a lot of that is just getting educated, reading testimonies and books about healing from SRA and just connecting with the community, because it's a very damaged community, but a very loving one as well, and one in just like hungry for safety and hope. So I don't think anyone would turn away. Like there's just so many opportunities is yeah, what I want to say about that. And there's this story, this is a little random, but it's just on my heart. This story about Iain. In 2023, we went back to Amsterdam with the intention of kind of seeing Iain's old stomping grounds where he used to live when he was with his daughter and first wife. And we went to the apartment where they used to live, where the abduction happened. We went to their front door. We went to the playground across the street where he used to play with his daughter. And it was this really kind of serene, quiet, beautiful moment where we were just sitting at a picnic bench, and there were some new playgrounds, like parts to the playground. And Iain, just out of the quiet, he was like, "Oh, Adele would have loved that playground." And I just constantly see who Iain is, that who he is at his core is a loving father. And it makes me so sad how misunderstood he is, because that's just like, he is a fighter. He doesn't care what other people think about him, like, because of everything that he's been through. He is intense, and people can, kind of be off put by that, but who he is at his core is just a loving father, and who wants the best for his daughter and will do anything to get there. And really, I've learned so much about God's love through Iain, because like, people will tell Iain, "Oh, you just have to move on, it's like just have more children, move on." And it's like, God would never just move on from us. Like, God will fight for us and love us, uh, like, as long as he possibly can. And that's what Iain does. So it's an honor to fight this fight with him, and just see, like, and grow with one of the most beautiful people I've ever known. And I feel like when people join this community, you just get more and more reasons why you want to be a part of it and fight for these people, because they are the most deserving of our support. This is the most important issue happening in the world. And it's amazing how beliefs form and how distractions become more important than these things. It's pretty sickening. So
Thank you for sharing that. I think, you know, one of the things that I love doing with my introductions is asking the guest, like, outside of your story, who are you? Like, I want people to see that you are a farmer, that you're a gardener, that you love cats, like whatever it is, and because so often, like, these stories are so all consuming and they're terrible, and I feel like sometimes we just get caught up in like that story of the person and then how it affected them. And people don't realize that, like, like you said, Ian, you were a normal guy. Like, you might not have always been. And maybe you wouldn't be as intense now if you didn't have something like so horrible that you have to go to battle for every single day. I'm sure you'd like to just not have to worry about this and to be able to just move on. Like, why didn't we think of that? Can't believe no survivors thought about like just moving on from their story. Like, what a terrible thing to say, first of all. But like, that's not how it is, and this is intense what we're doing. And it's horrible to like be confronted with this. And Emily, like, I just commend you for like just embracing that. Like, it melts my heart hearing from both of you like how you were moved by that, when some other people might have been like exactly what Ian was saying. Get over it. Like, it's been this many years. Like, stop. Like, you're gonna look at this playground and like you can't just enjoy this moment with me. Like, all you can think about is your daughter. Where instead you were just like, you're so like just compassionate to what he's going through, and like you said, patient, and you have such a beautiful ability to like step into shoes that like you can't even fathom living in, and you're walking a mile in them every single day. And I think that's just so beautiful. Like, we all have a lot to learn from you too, Emily. As much as we're learning from Ian, I think people who aren't going through this, who step into it, have so much to offer too, because like Ian said, like, this is a problem. It is happening everywhere. There's a lot of people going through it, but there's also a lot of people who aren't. And those people don't know how to react when somebody discloses to them, or when they find out that somebody that they know is a survivor, or they meet a survivor that they're dating, or maybe the survivor wakes up 10 years into their marriage and says, "Holy crap, I'm an SRA survivor." A lot of people don't know how to react to that. It does not come natural because we're not taught about this. And I love how for you, somehow it has been like this very natural process where you've, like you said, the Lord set you up in different ways in your life to be prepared to be able to embrace things like this instead of running from them, instead of combating them. And you have made this your identity as much as it has been Ian's. And I think that's just wonderful. And I wanted to see, do you guys have, and this could be either of you, both of you, for couples that are going through some of this, and who are fighting this fight together, do you guys have any advice for couples in specific, and ways that advice that maybe you guys have found that has been really helpful to navigate, scriptures that have been really helpful, anything that has sort of centered you guys when things have tried to push you apart? Because I'm sure they have. I'm sure that there's been a lot of adversity trying to get you guys apart too. I'd love to know how you guys combat those battles.
It's a good question. I think one of the biggest things is to just keep communicating and coming together and talking about everything. I mean, like, hiding absolutely nothing. Anything that comes up that we're processing or that we heard, whatever, we just talk about all of it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that when you're doing the kind of work that we're doing, and putting on our armor for this battle and learning what that means, and um, at the same time that we're getting ready for battle, where the attacks start, and the attacks are things that anything, any chink in your armor, any door that you leave open will be bum rushed. Like, the enemy wants to shut us down. The enemy wants to destroy us individually, destroy our marriage, destroy our resolve to do what we've set out to do. And so I think commitment to each other is the first step, that's essential, because the attacks are on. I mean, they're predictable in that you're going to get attacked. But as far as what that's going to look like, and what that's going to do in your home, is not something that you can really fathom until it's happening, and that it's just such a strong, overpowering, and would be destructive and game changing if it weren't for our commitment to each other and our commitment to God. And constantly, like when we feel the attacks, when we feel that we hate each other, which I think happens, in um we just reminded, like, wait a minute, like that's a lie. And we made a decision because we knew we were going to go through hell once we turned this corner and made this decision together to go this route. Then all bets are off, and the enemy is going to try to take us out. So just like keeping that as like a baseline knowledge, then when it happens, it's like, wow, this is intense, but we know where we're going to be at the next day. We know it's just part of the process, and what it's done has just forced us to keep our eyes on the Lord and about what He says about us individually, us as a couple, us as um, soldiers of Christ, as vessels that are indwelt by the Holy Spirit, and that we have authority over this evil, and it can't touch us. It can't touch us. Like we have the victory, and we're just doing the work. And it's tough work because we're up against us. The enemy is not weak, and the enemy is extremely intelligent, extremely wily, extremely just good at what it does. So therefore we can't compromise. We can't take our eyes off of the way. Because when we do, we know. So it's like a training. He's God's building us up as to be, and understanding that and understanding what we're up against just keep us from falling too far off of our where we're seated, and keep us grounded, keep us from not ever going too far away from each other. And even when it feels like it is, we know it's not, because we know what we're doing. We know where our hearts are. And I think it's just kind of like when you have the flu and you just got to get through it. It's like here's another attack, and we're dealing with it together, but we're grounded and solid enough so that it's not going to work. It's just making us stronger.
Yeah, I think just also praying for God to show us any open doors in our lives to attack has been really important, so that we can repent if it's sin, and break those things in Jesus' name, any strongholds. Um, and yeah, just seeing any vulnerable places. And it's just the biggest thing is having faith. And time after time, it's like we go through a hard season and then we see, oh wow, there's God in it. Like I knew He was there all along, but now I, can see it even more clearly again. And it just grows us in strength and um, like encouragement and endurance, because this is a life that requires endurance and steadfastness. Um, but it gives us that, like, knowing that God is fighting for us, and He wants us to work together and be together and do this kind of work. So I think remembering that big picture instead of getting too discouraged by small things. Like, I think that's happened quite a bit, where this little thing will really bother us and take us off course, and we just have to. Well, that's more me. That's more me. Iain's really like pretty steady, but just keep coming back, and um, God gives us the encouragement that we need. He continues to. So
I think it's tricky because everything around us is like pulling us in another direction and trying to present a different reality. Again, where we live, where it's just the two of us. We have people like you, Emma, and people are around the country and around the world, but there's a certain distance there where we're kind of like fighting in our corner, you're fighting in your corner, and so there's a lot of distraction and people saying, "Hey, look over here, look," and it's we have to like stay in our zone and stay in the truth that we know, and the truth about evil, the truth about God, and the truth about life, and be okay with living that regardless of what anyone else is doing. And that's tricky because all the family and friends are doing something else and
Right.
not that interested for the most part in what it is that we see needs to be done.
You guys are such an amazing couple. It's neat to see how you guys have overcome all of this because, I mean, we're in an epic battle, and whether you're alone or whether you have support, like there's a million different arrows being shot trying to, stab us in the back or turn us against our fellow, survivors or, allies. And it's incredible seeing two people like you, like being able to navigate all of that despite all the obstacles that have come in your path. And seeing you guys both just always being able to center on, you know, no, we're not going to, separate and get pulled apart from each other. That's Satan telling us to do that. Like, that's not God's will. That's not why he brought us together. That's an interference in what God brought to us, which was each other. Satan's trying to wedge his, dirty fingers between us and, create the same destabilization that he does for, all these families that go through this, and trying to test you guys. So I think that's really beautiful. And it gives a lot of hope that people, can make these overcome this themselves. But I want to ask you guys this question because I think it's important and you guys have learned a lot. If you could tell the entire world a message, what would you want them to know about SRA, about occult abuse, and about what you guys have learned?
Everywhere we look, there are problems. And, I used to be passionate about the environment, about animals, wanting to protect them. And then I learned about ritual abuse. I learned that there are more slaves now in the world than ever before. And yet in America, I've heard it described as we're under this satanic lullaby where we think everything is great. Look how technologically advanced we are and how comfortable we are. We can, control the temperature in our house and buy whatever we want on the internet. And we are asleep as a whole. But, and the most horrible things are happening to the most innocent people in the world. And on such a wide scale, it's like you can hardly comprehend it. And so why not focus on this big problem? Because it actually, I believe this is the root of all of the problems that people are trying to fix. I think a lot of people do seek good and do want to make positive change in the world, but they're doing it kind of in all the wrong places. It's like, how much does this human trafficking, ritual abuse impact our world? Is it a little or is it a lot? And it is a tremendous amount. And there's nothing more important than that. And it can't continue if more and more people rally together and expose it and show what it looks like, show how it deceives. If we educate ourselves, support survivors, stop labeling things just like, oh, that's mental illness, that's schizophrenia, and put people in these boxes. Like we need to stop doing that. It's causing so much harm, and just like child abuse, how these people grow up to be adults and they are unhealed and they don't know how to heal. And it's just like every major world event is tied to this. And if we could just see it for what it is and start fighting against it, knowing that we have victory in Christ, and that's the only way we're going to have victory over this, then it's like really the most purposeful life you could ever dream of or wish for. It's the most important thing that you could ever focus on and sacrifice for. So those are some thoughts.
Yeah, I think the purpose part is important because all people are desire to know more about like what their purpose is, what they're doing here, and but they don't want to they don't want to look in the hard places to find it. And I think that the issues that I feel that people bring up that people are going through, um, the answer for all of the issues that people are going through is the same answer that we have found. It's just not it's not as clear, and it's not as clear that you need to turn that way because the issue isn't because you haven't seen SRA yet, because you haven't come across where evil goes to, and it hasn't touched you. So the other things that come up in people's lives, whether it's sickness or loss or some kind of financial issue, these are all crises people. And part of me struggles to have empathy for that. Like just that's my natural response is like, oh, you think your leaky roof is a problem. Well, I've got a problem for you. But I know that's not really the right place to be, because it is a problem. Your cancer is a problem. Your the fact that you lost your job is a problem. The fact that your marriage is struggling is a problem. But the I just want you to see the bigger problem, the problem that this whole world does lie in wickedness, and that the answer to that and the answer to these other things is the same answer. We have to turn, we have to shift our whole perception, and that which is being framed for us through the media and through disinformation, which is extremely powerful, and just see it for what it is. Like, we have a choice to go along with this and not really know what we're doing and kind of just follow the trail of where all the sheep are being led, or realize that this wickedness is real, and we have one option, and that option takes care of all these other things that come up that people can't find the solution to, because they don't see where it goes to. They don't understand it. And that's even my first wife, because she grew up in an occult family. She saw the depths of evil when she was telling me she was leaving, and I'm taking our daughter back to occult, and because of mind control, and I was telling her she was crazy. She had our daughter give me a Bible. Like, that is the only antidote to evil is good, and God is good. God is love. God has already given us the victory. He's given us the authority to to deal with these problems, to fight on the behalf of good. And that's amazing when you see life as that, and not as, you know, when are we going to Disney World, or whatever it is, you know. And I I desire for other people to see the bad so that they can see the good. Because it's not that I want to focus on the bad. It's not that I think like everyone needs to know all the details, but you need to know enough details, because I don't believe you can know the good side of things unless you understand the bad. Um, and that's what people know it's bad. They want change, but they think Trump's going to change it, or, you know, they think whatever. And it's, um, I don't I don't think so. You know, I don't think that there's any hope in the system, or in a man, in somebody who comes up through the electoral process. I think that's another deception. And so maybe certain things start to get better, but there is absolutely no way that the mainstream is going to turn their eyes to SRA unless we make them. They're not going to do it voluntarily. There there's a reason why this has been off our radar as a society for as long as it has been, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to come about through the normal process. It's just not. So people are like, wow, you know, Trump won, so now we're on the winning streak and things are going to get better. No, they're not in that way, because something more heinous than you can understand is in the process being exposed. And when you see that, maybe you'll see where the true answer lies. Um, that's what I hope for people, is see where the true answer is and start to head that way.
Oh my gosh, I love both of those answers so much. You both said so much that just like brought so much joy to my heart to hear, because it's also true, you know. And I agree with you, Ian. I think when we it's not it's not a bad thing to count on somebody, whether it's God or whether it's a president, to help make change. We need other people in these positions, you know, whether it's a spiritual position or whether it's here on earth with us. Like, we need to have hope that there's things greater than us that are in positions that can help fight this war. And I believe that there are, you know. But I think when that's what our soul, um, I guess, perspective is, oh, well, God's going to take care of it. I don't have to do anything. Like, God gave the fact that we know about this, God is putting that responsibility on us. And I think when we just sit back after what we learn and we just say, oh, well, somebody's going to, you know, fix it. Like, I don't have to do anything but just sit here. You know, the president's going to take care of it. You know,
Mhm.
like we're not taking personal accountability for what we know and for what God is anointing us for. Like, he's giving us this information because he wants us in this physical realm to help fight what he's trying to fight in that spiritual realm. You know, he knows that, and there's not one person. Like, you see those memes that go around like, oh, you know, so and so is going to end like a 2,000-year-old, you know, satanic death cult. Like, you really think one person, like there's a truth in that. Like, this is a very old cult. Like, this is a very old system that has been going for who knows how many years. I would say since biblical times. You know, you can read the Bible and see, you know, instances where this stuff was likely happening back then, even if they didn't call it satanic ritual abuse or dissociation. You know, Nathan Reynolds talks a lot about how, you know, these same principles that we're talking about today, you know, were happening back then, and where you can see evidence of that in biblical times, you know. But one person cannot dismantle all of this. Like, it does take everybody. I always say it takes a village to raise a child, and it's going to take the entire world to save one. You know, like, this is our responsibility. If we know about this, like, we can't just sit back, you know. And it doesn't take a lot to do something, you know, whether it's writing a book or sharing a book link on your social media and saying, hey, Ian wrote a book, go buy it. Like, that doesn't take anything, you know. And there's so many great things. A lot of people have money that they don't know what to do with, and so they're donating it to, you know, corrupt causes or to things where they don't know where their money's going. And it's like, you can go do a lot with that and provide, open a door for yourself that nobody else has done and provide a service to the world, whether that's like opening up your home or creating a shelter or donating to a survivor, or buying a book, like there's so many different ways that we can contribute to this, and Emily, what you were saying too, about how we just label people and we're so stuck in like this manufactured reality that like things are happening right underneath our noses. And the most that we can do is just label it terminology that we know. Oh, that person is schizophrenic. Are they, or are they just traumatized? Or are they dissociative? Do they have dissociative identity disorder and it's being, improperly diagnosed by design? Like we have all these ways that like we're doing such a disservice to people, and I think both of you, like your missions and what you've learned, that's so much wisdom to be able to pull that out and, analyze it in those ways and be able to articulate it. And I hope the same thing, that the world looks and cares and decides, what, Ian's child isn't mine, but I'm going to take personal responsibility because his child is mine, through the word of God. Like all of the children of the world belong to all of us, and like all of us belong to each other in a way too. Like we're all responsible for like, the safety of each other and keeping an eye out on each other, and one of the things, Ian, that you were talking about was sort of like the escalation in a sense of like before the event happened on December 27th, 14 years ago, there was sort of like a series of events that probably would have been easy to write off as being, a crazy person, or that she was schizophrenic, or that, this is just like it's not real, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about some of that escalation too, to help people understand more of what both of you were just talking about, how this stuff can be right in front of us and we don't recognize it. And I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on going through that.
Yeah, so the, we spent, my first wife, my daughter, and I spent 18 days together following 3 months apart where they were back in Poland. And I like I had always known there was something going on with my first wife and her family. But I tried to label it as incest, borderline personality disorder, just something fairly simple and common. And I didn't follow that trail, because if it's incest, that's going to lead to problems that need to be dealt with. And I didn't even think that was true. Um, so we met back up after 3 months apart and spent 18 days together. And the first interaction with my first wife that I had, she switched from 3 months of "I love you" to "I hate you, and I'm taking our daughter to a cult because of mind control," etc. And so that was on day one of the 18 days. And I just still, at that moment, I was like, "You're not going to fool me. I've seen this before. This is this "I love you, I hate you, I love you" thing. This is just part of our relationship, and whatever happened in Poland, I'm going to flip it back to "I love you," because I know that's where you really are, and I have no idea what could make you say these things to me. And then just like living with I'll just my first wife during those last 18 days was very educational, just in seeing the power of trauma-based mind control and SRA, and what it can do to a person, and everything that she was doing. And she didn't say much to me, but what she said was very powerful. And just everything that she did was an attempt to communicate and to tell me how bad it is. And having our daughter give me this Bible 2 days before they leave, and and just the look that she gave me, the absolute terror in her eyes, and the knowing that she was going to go through with what her family required of her, because she wasn't in control of herself. And just being able to live with her while she's going through that, and she's telling me she's taking our daughter, and just telling me it in many different ways, and then actually doing it. um like she went from telling me to just, everything. Not She wouldn't let me see her body, because I believe she had bruises on her body, and she had lost 20 to 30 pounds in those 3 months we were apart. She started listening to the same music over and over again. And the two songs I heard the most were "Shut It Down" and "Miss Me" by Drake. And the movie she made me watch, Unthinkable and Remember Me. Um, she just drilled into me, "Do it for Adele, do it for Adele." And I just like, what are you talking about? Do what for Adele? And her her obvious concern for her daughter and not for herself, her just crying out in any way that she could to try to get the point across, before she had to take our daughter back, to the point where when she left a whole fish in the pot boiling, which was, I believe it was, she was drilling in the point that she had told me her dad created a red herring. And so when they left, this fish, just a fish in boiling water on our stove, when she left, that was the last thing that she did. And it's just like, we don't eat fish, let alone a whole fish with scales in our pot cooking when you leave. Um, and then the journal that she left on our computer table, just right on top, um, just saying things like, I believe in you, I love you. I want you, she quoted, Rihanna, I want you to make me feel like I'm the only girl in the world. Um, and just those words of hers, like right on my computer table, after she left, and I never got to see my daughter again. And she's just like, she's screaming out for help. Then she posts, a song, "If Tomorrow Never Comes," on her Facebook page right before she blocks me, and it just goes from there. So it's just like this woman, this mother, my first wife, is in such a spot where she has seen the worst, and she's under control of the worst, but through that, she's still tried to communicate. She's trying to be heard, to get out of this. And and I got to experience it, like no one else was in the home, but I was her husband. I was the one that she knew would care about her daughter as much as I do. And I believe that she was banking on that she knows that I would want an answer. And that's why she had our daughter give us this one, because there is one answer to darkness, and that's light. Um, and that it's just changed my world. Um, Ben Harper has a song where he says, "I put your world into my veins, and now a voiceless symphony remains." And it's just like, that's what happened. Like that, this woman was my wife, and because of our daughter, like there's nothing else. It's war, and these people have to be set free, and people need to realize that there are people stuck in these absolutely terrible systems that cannot get out, that will say they are doing great, that will say that I am the problem, and not that who I'm pointing the finger out, because they don't have control over their lives. They are slaves. Um, just like the Patty Hearst story, where she decided to join this group. She robbed banks with this group. She couldn't separate herself from that group. She was 19 when she was taken into that and tortured and brainwashed. Like, my wife was born into it, and they know what they're doing. They are very good at what they're doing. And we need to set them free, and we need to expose this so that the rest of these people are set free, and that this can't operate amongst us. It's absolutely ridiculous that this is operating under our noses, and we don't even want to look at it. And when we do, we think we're powerless, when the truth says we're not powerless.
Amen. It is. I think a lot of people in hindsight, especially parents like you who didn't grow up in these systems and families, they, like you said, you tried to label it the best that you could. This is what she has. She has borderline personality disorder. Like that's like the best that we can do, because we're not taught like these things. So like I think some of us do our best to try to label stuff, but as you were saying, Emily, like we really need to get away from doing that because we have to realize that like so much of what we taught and excuse me, we're taught is wrong. That like we are severely undereducated as a society what trauma is, right down to psychologists and counselors who literally go to school for, 6 to 10 years, if not more to, accumulate all these degrees to be able to sit in a therapeutic setting and help people. And they're not even taught that like dissociative identity disorder even exists. Like, and going back to what you were saying, Iain, our churches are accepting pedophiles and Freemasons and they're letting them minister to their church. Yet a survivor walks in and they're not even allowed to say, I'm a survivor. They get kicked out or ostracized. Like how backwards our society has become because of this lack of information. And Emily, I love how you said that, like, the root of so much of the evil and the things that we as a society like care about as a planet, it comes down to this. And we're like so focused on like, being really dialed into like this one issue that we'll spend our whole lives fighting for and it's never going to be resolved because we're not going down to the foundation of like why that's happening. And so I think like as much as we want to look away from all of this because we think that, like you said, ignorance is bliss, it's not. Like the things that plague us and that are destroying us, whether it is trauma that we don't know how to heal from because we're not taught how, whether it is the environmental stuff, like the problems on this planet are because of these Satanists. Like that's not God's will and doing. He's not the one being like, destroy cities and towns and go to war. Like that is Satan's doing. And that is because we have turned our back for so long that these people have crawled into the most intimate spaces in society that have the power to make these decisions that impact all of us and then create additional side effects in our lives that we care about the side effects but not the root, right? Just like how we do our own bodies sometimes and how therapists will treat these victims and survivors that come forward. And I totally agree with you. Like if we take time to like learn about this, it's actually going to make our life a lot better because we're not going to have to worry about these things that keep us up at night. We're going to have that peace and we're going to have these, you take out all the evil that is making the decisions for the world and you put healed people, in leadership positions or you leave, natural law, God's law on people, and teach people about that. Like we can reverse and create like this really beautiful world that's not rooted in all these problems, and all these like catastrophes and all this trauma. But because we keep turning our backs, like nothing gets better, And so I think like we just have this so backwards. Like people think like I'm gonna look away, it doesn't affect me. Like yes, it does. The stuff that keeps you up at night, the stuff that plagues you, the stuff that you're fighting for, and like these causes that you're working so hard for to try to solve on the planet. Like you do care about this stuff. You just don't realize it because you don't realize the foundation of the things that are traumatizing you every day are the same things that we're talking about in this conversation: satanic ritual abuse, crimes against children, organized abuse, and mind control. That really is like the root of so much, and it's really powerful seeing what you guys are doing as a couple and the fact that you're able to like minister this and like teach this to people and have like such an elevated bird's eye view of all of this. And I'm really excited to see you both of your missions grow together and as individuals. And one of the things I wanted to bring up too was conventions, connections, and dreams. Because on this note, I think, there is a lot of good mixed in with the bad. And I think you guys are finding those pockets of good. And I'd love for you guys to talk a little bit about some of that and, what you're encountering on your journey and like the doors that are opening and, the way that you guys are receiving the light and then letting the light in other people's lives.
I think that when you start looking and when you start being open to this as reality and listening to the survivors telling their stories and to the people like Samantha and I fighting for our children, um, there you'll see that there are just so many people crying out and so many people banding together to speak about these things and to put their foot down and say no more. And we've been finding just groups of people that this is their desire, this is what's on their heart. They've seen it, and so now this is the war that we're going to willingly enter, because it's the war that we should be fighting. And so just even last year, I found different conferences that I didn't even know existed. And I've been in this for 14 years. Emily went to the Call to Peace conference where Lisa Meister was in Asheville in May last year. And then I found the International Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference through the University of Toledo. And that was amazing. Survivors can attend for free. And so I got to attend for free. And it was hundreds of people with probably, well, like 4 sessions a day and like 5 options for what you're going to take in each of those sessions. And just the communication amongst survivors and the networking, it was fantastic. And Georgia in October for the Warrior Bride Conference, and that Nathan Reynolds was supposed to be there, but he got that was when the hurricane hit, so he was in the middle of that, so he didn't go. But it was just an amazing Christian conference of people who are just right on the same page, and so to do those things and to see those things just all around us has been amazing. And people have been reaching out to me and asking what my daughter's name is so they can pray for her, asking what we need prayer for. We don't, it's hard for us to find time in our schedule because we have groups of survivors and individuals that want to talk to us, and it's exactly what we want to be doing. But it's just like once people know that you know, then they're like, they'll start to talk to you about the fact that they were ritually abused, and this is happening constantly now for us. And it's just been amazing, just the people around the world that are banding together to take a stand, and that once that begins to happen, and once people come out as with their eyes open, then people feel like they can talk, and they know they're going to be heard. Because that is, you mentioned this before, Emma, that people stay hidden in the shadows because they know, or they think that when they say something to get it, nobody's going to care and nobody's going to do anything. So they don't have a way out. But when we start meeting and banding together and speaking and proceeding without fear and just resolute against this evil, then it just opens the floodgates, and people start to come out and feel comfortable and know that there are people that love them and care about them and will stand by them and fight for them.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing, just being a person that you were for me, Iain, that just gives permission just in how you live to ask questions, to explore these taboo subjects. And I think we can do that for survivors who know they're survivors by being a safe place, being people who know about these subjects and aren't going to put them in a box. But we can also be that for everyone individually can be that on a mass scale, where people, that's part of mass mind control, is like people being afraid to even go somewhere in their thoughts to ask questions that might be labeled crazy or whatever it might be. But just doing it, talking about it, having it be public discussion more gives that permission I think people need. I know I needed to be bold enough to dig deeper and come forward and seek like-minded people who are looking for the same things. So
You're so right about that. I know I felt terrified to start my podcast because I was like, there's literally going to be nobody in the world that has went through the stuff that I'm going to talk about, and nobody's going to support me. Like everybody's just going to think I'm crazy, and like my reputation's going to be gone, and like here we go. Like I guess, ready or not, like this is just the way it's going to be. But you're so right. Like whenever you actually like get the courage to talk about it, so many other people are just dying to talk about it also, and like feel the same way that they can't because people are going to look at them. Like we're all so worried, like you said, Emily, about like mass mind control. Like our first thoughts aren't like, let's be truthful and do the right thing. It's, oh my God, what are people going to think of me? What if people don't like me? Like how horrible that like we've been conditioned to like worry so much, almost selfishly, at the expense of other people and of doing right. When you just do the right thing, other people, many other people like genuinely want to do the right thing too. They're just too scared also. And so I love that like talking about this, it does like instead of making you feel more lonely, I think it actually makes you feel less lonely because then you get to find like your real people. You get to find other people who have just been wanting so bad to talk about all of this and don't know where to turn. And all of a sudden you don't feel alone anymore. It's like, oh, thank God, but we've just been so conditioned to like harbor all of this and to just like live in fear that we prevent ourselves from doing right at the expense of like these really petty things, our own labels that we have for ourselves and our own positions in society and how we want to be viewed, which is all just it's fake. It's just like a mask that we wear. Like our real true selves are underneath all of that. It's like what do we care about and what are we willing to like lay our life down for? What are the things that matter at the end of the day? What is God's will for us? It's to do right, it's to do good, it's to love each other and to, stand up for the vulnerable and for victims, and I know he weeps at what these children are going through. And like we know that, but it's like instead of like being in a position to do that, we're just so conditioned to like internalize everything and to be quiet, and it is really beautiful that these groups and conventions are popping up and support groups and Zoom calls because I think like when it's something that we're surrounding ourselves with, like we're just having like a normal conversation right now. Like there's nothing conspiratorial, like weird about it, but like it probably we wouldn't expect that before doing it. And I think that's beautiful. It like breaks that mind control. And it's like, wait, like it's harder to lie and to like be somebody that we're not and to like keep all of that inside. Like that is more painful than actually just like telling the truth and standing up for what's right, being a voice for people who don't have one, standing by your fellow humans, sticking up for people. Like that comes really naturally for us humans. It's not natural to like worry about what people think of us. Like that stuff gives us negative emotions and anxiety and fear. Like that is Satan's will. That is what he wants for us, and like we break that spell and like step out of that whenever we devote our lives to that purpose that you were both talking about and like realize that there's something so much bigger than these stupid like petty positions and labels that are just so temporary on us that like at our foundation like all of that's going to be gone one day, but like these children are still going to be going through this if we don't speak up, like period, and so I think like what you guys are devoting your life to is just beautiful, and I love that there's more of these pockets of people coming together and creating ways for us to connect because that's what the enemy doesn't want. They want us to all be lonely and in fear and quiet. And this is helping normalize it so we can be confident, like just talking about it normally, even if people don't like us for it. And even if people don't believe us, we believe each other. And like there's more and more of us coming on board with that. And so I commend both of you. I think that's wonderful, and like I said, I'm so tickled and like I can't wait for what you guys have in store. I feel like you're both honestly just getting started with this and that, you're just dipping your toe into your mission, even though you've both been on this journey for a while now. I just see you both blossoming and like, having all these creative ideas and stuff. And I think it's wonderful. And I can't wait to see where that grows. And I wanted to give you guys the opportunity. I know that you guys have talked about a lot today. Is there anything that we didn't cover today that you had wanted to share or talk about that we didn't get to?
there was one thing, it's just a little thing, but it was helpful for me because I'm always looking online for like pictures of Adele, um, just to like see updates, or it like makes her feel close even though she's across the world. But there's this website that I found. It's called PIMEYES, PIMEYES. I think it's .com. I'm not 100% sure, but you can upload pictures of someone, and then it will do a search for wherever that person's face is on the internet. And so if there's someone that like people haven't seen for a long time or are worried about, or there's a chance that there's a picture of them online, and this website showed us a lot of pictures, and it will show you the picture. It won't show you exactly where it is unless you pay for it. So we did, but we got a lot of information just, um, and it just things like that feel like we're getting closer and closer and closer, even if they're just little things. It's like we know without a doubt that we're getting closer to her, but also just closer to this all coming to an end in the best way. Like it needs to come to an end, and that's God's will. So maybe that would be a helpful website for someone else.
Thank you. I never heard of that. I'm going to look at that too. That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that those little things like that have put wind in my sails, and like it's not, even though my daughter was stolen from me and raised in a place that I couldn't have even previously imagined, in the worst place that I can think of. Getting to see a picture has helped, and there's a lot of them out there, and just a lot of also pictures of my ex-father-in-law in his position with the city, and standing next to and shaking the hand of the president of the city. And so, and I sent a PDF copy of my book to all of his coworkers and to the president of the city, and they immediately just blacklisted me, blocked my email account. So, like I know that this is just like so entrenched, and I know from other people's stories that it's like that in the United States. From my perspective, it's without the secondhand stories, like Kathy O'Brien and J.R. Sweet and people like that who talk about the government level in the United States. I don't have the personal experience with that, but I can see, and I've been in that city in Poland, to where I just know that they have all their bases covered. The occult has the positions they need. They're not weak, they're strong, but we have the victory. Like that's good does win, and we have the victory as people who are going to take a stand, as people who are going to choose the other side. And so I just think that proceeding in that understanding that, yeah, it is that bad and even worse than you can imagine, because we're just not built to see that level of evil until we have to. Um, we're going to start winning battles. We've won the war. This is going to unravel. It's going to be exposed. It's going to be dismantled. And so we proceed knowing that, like it's not a fair fight. The enemy, those who are perpetrating SRA, have had a long run, but they know their days are numbered. They know the nature of the spiritual realm, and that our good almighty living God is the victor. They know they don't stand a chance. So there's such a joy in proceeding down that road and being a part of this war that we're going to be victorious in, knowing that there's more slaves today than ever before, but knowing that that's not going to be there. That's not going to be true for much longer. Um, I firmly believe that we're in the middle of it, and that we are here to change this to whatever that looks like. I don't think we can even imagine it, because it's so big. It's so the world that has come to a place where it's got nowhere to go except for a drastic change, because the evil is so entrenched and so strong, and so has created such confusion and unbelief and distortion about what we're doing here, distortion about what life is.
Yeah. I just was thinking of the scripture in Revelation. It's one of my favorites, that they overcame the beast by the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, and they didn't love their lives even when faced with death. And like I'm grateful, Emma, that you give the platform and the opportunity for people to share their testimonies, because that is a part of the victory. And the enemy tries to make us feel small and ineffective and not powerful. And we're not without God, but just the power of everyone's story is, it cannot be understated. And so I just thank you, Emma, for giving us, for strengthening that part of our victory, that tool that is so essential for absolutely destroying the beast. So thank you.
You're both so brave for stepping up and sharing. It would have been probably, honestly, not morally easier, but you guys have faced a lot since coming out. You've had to deal with, even more than what you already were by speaking your testimony, and like I said, Adelle is so blessed to have two amazing parents that she gets to come home to one day, who understand her and who will be there to walk with her on her healing journey. And, all the survivors that you guys have not yet touched in your lives, and the people that you're currently working with. And Iain, I know you're working on a book, and I know it's with your help, Emily. And so I'm really thrilled for that too. But we're all going to be victorious together. Like I said, it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes the whole world to save one. So even though we're all in different pockets of the world, we're freaking, like Lisa Meister says, we're burning this, Luciferian kingdom down. Like it's not staying up anymore. And it's because there's people like us in all pockets of the world. And, we might not be together physically, but we're together in heart and spirit. And we're putting our, that energy of destruction and justice and freedom into these pockets where we're at, and it's connecting. It's becoming like a blanket over their satanic blanket. Like we're blinding it, like we're shining our light everywhere. So it is a really exciting time, despite it being so hard too for people, and like I said, I can't wait to have another podcast with you guys where we're talking about really good stuff. And you're reuniting with your daughter and your books and all the things that you guys have yet to do. But where can people find and connect with you and support you online?
Well, they can go to our website, iloveyoulikeone.com. There's a contact us page there, and a good list of related materials as well, that are books that are super informative if people want to learn more, or learn more about Iain's story. Podcasts, websites, yeah, all that good stuff. But there's just such an abundance of material out there to start learning more about. Yeah. There's so much. So be bold and read a book about SRA, people.
Yes. So the website, the YouTube channel, I love you like one at gmail.com is the email address to contact us, or just the contact page to the website. But we haven't made a video together in a little while. I've I've been trying to find time to do it and expect to make more of those. We did find an AI program which changes takes a video in English and puts it into whatever language you want it to be in with your voice, and will even move your lips so it looks like you're speaking that language. I do like put in the notes that it's through AI because I'm not trying to pretend like I speak Polish fluently, but it's allowed us to reach a whole nother audience. So that's been exciting. And yeah, like feel free to reach out with any questions or comments or stories of your own. And I think just banding together and creating a network of good and of people who want to see this change. And yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Trying to get more out there, more people in the conversation, more people on board in the fight, and let survivors know that there are people who care and people who aren't going to just let this go. Like we are fighting for you as well as for Adele and Agata. We're not going to turn away because we've seen it, and it's not okay with us. And everything that we have, we are pouring into our desire for this to change and for the captives to be set free.
Yes.
Amen. And I am so impressed with your website. I love that you added the related materials and put podcasts and books and resources. And also for people listening, you can order Iain and Emily's book right off of the front page. They have tons of different options, including a signed copy. Or if you are struggling to maybe make ends meet and really want to read the book but don't have the money, they were generous enough to create a PDF for you guys as well that you can download and read from your phone or computer. They are really passionate about having this information get out to you, so you're not limited. But if you do have the means necessary, every dollar sent to a survivor, a whistleblower, a family going through a hard time, it literally gets directed right into their mission, because so many parents and survivors and whistleblowers have all their resources in so many ways stripped from them from the opposition and the people that they are exposing. And so when you can provide that, it helps them on their mission be able to buy equipment for podcasts or to be able to pay their rent for the month. That way they don't go homeless, or, to provide for their family. So I really encourage you guys, if you're able to purchase, go get a signed copy. That would be really special to add to your collection. There is also a lot of people waking up to this, and there's a lot of people going through it right now. So I think these books also make really awesome gifts for people in our lives. It can help somebody feel less alone if they're going through a hard time, or going through something similar. There's a lot of lessons, there's a lot of information, a lot of education, and whether it's an advocate or another parent, I think books make an awesome gift to give somebody too. So I encourage you guys to go to the website, read the related materials, watch the videos that they have on here, go support their website, their YouTube. Iain is also on Facebook, on Twitter. He is on Instagram, all at I Love You Like One. So you guys can just type that in pretty much any social media outlet and find their accounts really easily. And they're very generous with allowing you guys to contact them. So you guys can pretty much do that from every platform as well. And I encourage you guys to. One day at a time, one person at a time, one testimony at a time, we really are going to defeat this evil and stop it in its tracks, and please don't ever feel like you guys are alone on the other side. As you guys just heard here, there's strangers that you don't even know fighting for you guys right now who are struggling. So keep going, you guys, and we can't do this without you. So with that being said, thank you guys for listening. God bless you, and we will see you next time.